Okay, so the first thing that you want to do when you get a wig order is make sure that you have the measurements of your client's head. You can ask them to take the measurements with a sewing tape measure, or you can do them yourself. You just want to make sure that their hair is in the state that they're going to wear it under the wig. So if it's going to be cornrowed and it flat to the surface, you want to make sure that they're getting their measurements with the cornrows in, or if they're going to wear it in a bun or something like that. But don't measure over top of the bun, of course. So the main measurements that I like to use are number one, the circumference of the head, number two, from forehead to nape of the neck, number five, from temple to temple around the back of the head, the occipital lobe, and number six for the nape of the neck. So those are all the measurements that I use in order to make my glueless lace closure wigs.
Okay, guys, so now it's time to transfer our head measurements onto the mannequin block. And so right now I have the dome cap. This is a standard dome cap that you can use to make your wigs. It's very easy to do your mapping on. This is one of the caps that I use. And what we're going to do first is we're going to take those head measurements that we did and we're going to transfer them onto the blocking so that we can make sure that we have the right measurements when we do our mapping, okay? So when I do my mapping for my wigs, I only use 4 out of the 6 measurements. And so the first one is going to be temple to temple. And remember, mine was 17 inches. Okay. So right now the cap does not reach over to that point. So I'm going to have to take a pin and I'm going to stretch it over to that marker, okay? And so from that point, I'm going to go back over here again. I know this is upside down, but you still know what 17 looks like. And come back around here. I'm going to leave that point there. Okay, so now if I come back over here to where we began, I'll start from this side, and that's 1 inch. Come around the occipital lobe, and I'm ending at 17 inches, okay? And then we already have the 22 circumference, so we don't have to do that because we're using a 22 head block. The next one is going to be from your hairline to the nape, and that is 14 inches. So I'm going to take this pin, grab the wig cap. I'm going to grab the wig cap and bring it down to 14. That's 14 inches. And then I'm going to do the nape across, which is 5 inches. So I'm going to pull it somewhere around here because it's not right at this line. It's a little beyond that point. I'm going to mark that down for the 1 inch. Come back over here, get my 5 inch point. I've already had a pin right there, so I can see exactly where to insert it. And this is how, I'm gonna bring this one down a little bit. I can see that it's a little uneven. Okay, bring that right down to the same level. 5 inches across, 14 from hairline to the nape, 17 from temple to temple around the occipital lobe, 22-inch circumference. Okay guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start to map out our lines for where we're going to sew our wefts. All right, and we're going to do double wefts in this class, and we're going to begin right behind the closure. We're using a 5x5 closure. Our closure is already placed, okay? And so the first thing that we're going to do is the outline around the closure. So we're sewing our closure on by hand. But I still like to have an outline for the mapping. So I'm drawing right around the closure. And using this as my guide.
This video will show you how to map double wefts 1 inch apart. If you want to sew single wefts, you'll need to make your wefts a 1/2 inch apart.
Okay. And so the simplest way to map out for your double wefts is going to be, we're going to take this measurement, and we know we're going to need at least 3 bundles of hair, depending on how long your client's hair is, how long their bundles are. So just remember that the longer the bundles, the more hair you need. So I'm going to take the T-pin and I want to place this a little over to the side because we're going to use this for our guide. And we're going to do our lines about 1 inch apart. Okay. So we're going to do about 8 or 9 lines for our guide. This is going to be the first one. We're making about 1 inch apart. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm using this second one for the second dot, because the second line, because I made a mistake right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And so I'm going to bend the wig head block down a little bit because I want to make sure that I can see my guides. And from here, I'm just going to go straight across. Turn it around as needed so you can see where you are. Making sure that your lines are the proper width between each other and proper spacing. Just do your best. So when we get to the top, and just ignore this dot right here, we're going to go up to this one. Okay, what I like to do is I'm going to come around, we're going to kind of swerve around and leave this right adjacent to the closure, because I like to sew and seal the closure with that last stitch. I'm sorry, I like to sew and seal the closure with that last weft. So we're going to bring this last long weft all the way around to the end of the closure. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Lead it right around. Okay. We're going to take this line right here that we're going to make, and we're just going to go straight across. All right. And so if you see the difference from where I made the outline for the closure and where I did this last line, there's going to probably be a gap right here. So what we'll do is we'll take our last weft and we'll sew right across. We'll sew it right across. We'll take our last weft and we'll sew it right across the back of the closure to secure it even more and to close up this space. Okay. Let me go over these lines a little bit more. And that's how you map out your wefts. And so the way that we place our closure is that you want to make sure that when you place this, it is about a ½ inch below the hairline. So you're going to give them a little bit more room when they're wearing the cap so that it doesn't go behind their hairline when they wear it. If we place it right on their hairline, then they're not going to have anything to, to cover their hairline. So you want to come down a little bit further, because some people may have willow's peaks like myself. Some people may have, a hairline that's really far up. And so you want to make sure that their natural hairline is not busting through the unit, or if they fit it, it'll start to move back too. So, you don't want their hairline to show through because the wig is moving back because it's not fitted right. So I'm coming down about a ½ inch below And hairline, as you can see, these 3 lines here, this middle line is going to represent the center of the face where the nose and everything is. So you want to make sure that you kind of get it as even as possible. So this is a 5x5 closure, so it may expand a little bit more past the out the sidelines, but we're going to stretch it, okay, to make sure that's centered to the best of our ability. I'm not going by that part that was there because that was not the actual center. Stretch it over a little bit more. Okay, so this is how we're going to place this down. We're going to stretch it so that the placement is right. Okay. And then you can see, you can pull it down, and once you come back up, you'll be able to see where the hairline stops at. Okay, so this is sliding down, but when I pull it up, because I haven't positioned it in the top yet, I can look through here and see that this may be a little bit below. I don't know if you can see it, but it may be a little bit below a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to move back up just a little bit. And some people go about 1 inch, but just don't really go over 1 inch. So if I get my measuring tape, you don't have to measure it out, but I'm just doing it for educational purposes. So this is about 3/4 of an inch, which is still okay. Because when I go over here, the way that it's framing the roundness of the head, when you come over a little further, it's going to get a little shorter. Distance is going to get smaller as it rounds the head. So the center is about 3/4 of an inch. Around the size of the closure is about 1/2 of an inch. So I am totally fine with that. So your next step is going to be, so we can, you can usually braid this. I'm going to put a clip on here. Some people braid it down. I usually have this braided down, but I'm used to working, with the hair loose, so that's totally fine with me. I'll go ahead and put a clip on here. Okay, because I want you to be able to see that I'm going to grab these 2 sides right here, the back part of the closure, and I'm going to stretch it back. We're going to spread, let me turn it to the side so you can see. So now I'm taking this pen and I'm using it as an anchor, and I'm stretching it because I'm holding this side as I'm stretching because I want to spread it out so it lays flat. I'm doing my best to lay it flat all the way around because you don't want one section, or this side section or the back section, to have any bubbles in it. You don't want it to look like that. You don't want it to look like that. You want it to be nice and flat. So I'm stretching it back and I'm spreading it over, okay? Because it's kind of rounded and square at the same time in the back. So that's one anchor over there. So I'm gonna push this all the way down so it's nice and flat. We're gonna come back. We're gonna do the same thing. over here. Okay, so this side is going down flat as well, and then this side is flat too. So just check your work and make sure that your closure is nice and flat going around each side. You don't want any gapping or bubbles or anything like that. So this one this is good because actually I still stretch it when I sew it, and you'll see in the next video. However, I just want to go ahead and just give it just a little more flatness. And we don't have any bubbling or anything. This one I'm going to leave up right here just for you know, the anchoring sake, because this anchor is good. So if it's stretched right here, when I sew it, I know that it's going to be nice and flat, but I don't want to stretch it so much that it's going to, you know, put a little extra indentation in the closure. So I can still sew across here with this being elevated, and then so I'll just turn this T-pin and sew around it, sew around, and then take it out. Okay, but when I sew it, I'm going to pull put a little tension on that corner so it'll stay nice and flat. But this is good. So don't rush yourself with placing the closure and everything, because sometimes if you're just beginning, it may not come out flat right away. I'm used to doing it and everything, but you know, utilize the 3 guidelines in the front for placement. Make sure that the front is at least about a ½ inch away from the wig cap, so that you can have you know, the proper coverage for your client's hairline. And just check your work as you go around. When you are placing the back of the closure, make sure you spread it, you know, in the opposite direction, and flatten it down as you go. And you know, just make sure everything is nice and flat before you start sewing. Okay? Okay, so when you begin to sew on the closure, you're not going to start, when you're sewing by hand, you're not going to start right at the end. I would suggest going back a little further from the beginning of the cap, so the knot is not at the end and it can come loose very easily. So even though we're going to secure it on with the sewing machine, I still like to put this practice in place just in case. So I start a little further back. You don't have to start as far back as I did. Maybe, you know, you can start, I'm probably about 1 inch back. You can start about a ½ inch. And I'm sewed through the cap and through the closure and through the loop of the thread. Okay, you want to make sure that you do not sew the cap to the dome head, the canvas head. Okay, so I'm going to lift it up a little bit. I'm going under this thick elastic, and I'm going to go through the cap, through the closure, and then through the loop. I'm sewing through the cap, through the closure, and through the loop of the thread. This is how you lock it in. This is how you lock your stitch in. Through the cap, through the closure, to the loop, and I'm sewing forward. I'm going to sew forward until I get to the end, and then I'm going to sew backwards and continue around. through the cap, through the closure, through the loop. And I'll show you one little minor trick that I like to do when my clients are wearing their closure units glueless. I will sew all the way to the end of the hair, and I sew it to the cap, because what this does, it gives it a nice flat look when they install it, and it holds it nice and secure, nice and snug. Because remember, we left that 1/2 inch space. I'm going to remove this one so I can continue sewing. This is just a little trick that I found that makes my glueless wig stay on a little more secure and look a little more natural. Because it rounds, it frames, because it frames your face around your hairline. I can also remove this T-pin. Since I have a little more security. Yes. Okay. So you see how it snugs right to the cap? It already has kind of like a natural lay. Okay, and now I'm going to go through this stitch, which is about 4 stitches back. Pull that through, go one more time, a little further back, and remember, we're going to sew right over top of this at the end, so no worries about that. This is just to make sure we don't have that little knot at the end of the closure sitting on someone's head, and then they accidentally cut it, and they could possibly cut too much, and then the closure isn't secured anymore. So I'm going to continue to sew around. Okay guys, so now we've come to the end of our closure. Let me get this clip so I can just move the hair out of the way. And we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side. So we're going to sew all the way to the end. I'm going to lift up the band because it's a little thick here. We're going to sew through the cap, through the closure, through the loop, through the cap, through the closure, and through the loop. So I just want to show you something really quick. So this is why it's important to still do the outline for your closure, because if it gets adjusted or the cap moves around or anything, you know exactly where to sew it at. So I know that I'm going to sew this right over top of this guideline. And we're going to sew. We're going to do our little trick where we're sewing all the way to the end. All the way to the end where the hair is. I'm going to remove this T-pin. All the way to the end. Let's getting a little stuck because of the elastic band that's inside. But that's okay. Keep going. And as you can see, we are at the end. So now we're going to sew backwards a couple stitches. Let's go back one more stitch. And then we're going to go through this loop here because we're ending off our stitching. We're going to go through the loop of the thread. We're going to pull it through one time, tighten it up, go through it again, pull it through again, tighten it up, and that's it. Trim it on the end. Make sure you don't trim too close so that you're not cutting your knot. And now you are ready to sew on your wefts.